Welcome back to Cow. So basically, all right. Here's how. Okay, here's the opening animation on the original versions.
Lies. You're not really a... Actually, what was Princess What's-Her-Name supposed to be? Was she a beetle, an insect, or
They're
something?
all cows, Jova. Didn't you? I think the ending made it perfectly clear.
Did you not pay attention to any of that ending?
I'm talking about the costume here.
The costumes are very elaborate, Jova. Anyway, yeah.
So
as you can see, the Super Nintendo version looks quite less pixelated compared to the Mega Drive version. This game was actually made with both platforms in mind, unlike the original, you can tell.
So it's good to hear we got that nice old disco vibe out of acapella.
Alright, and the music also sounds better on the Super Nintendo as well. Okay, so here's Anything But Tangerines. And as you can see, as it's always here's how the opening sounds in the Super Nintendo version. As you can see, the quality of the music is better. And here's another problem that keeps cropping up in these Super Nintendo / Mega Drive games. The Super Nintendo version is cropped. I mean, seriously, compare the resolution of both. I mean, hold on, you'll see in a moment. Yeah, notice how the screen on the Mega Drive version is quite bigger than the Super Nintendo version. In fact, the Mega Drive version it even says there, by the way, thanks to Nick for this footage. Credit to link to this channel in the description. 320/2024 on the Mega Drive, and the resolution on the Super Nintendo is 256 to 24. So there's like less, or is okay? How many of them are? There's a shit ton of diminished pixels on the Super Nintendo. It's cropped, and it makes dodging certain obstacles harder.
Around 70.
That's one of the primary reasons why I still really enjoy playing this PC version that I used for this playthrough, because it has a 640/480 resolution, which is even higher than the Mega Drive version, which allows me to see basically everything, and while at the same time having the benefits of the Super Nintendo version. But anyway,
for those of you gamers out there who don't often look at older games like we do, let me put it like this. Screen crunch can go a long ways in how enjoyable a game can be.
See Sonic Genesis for...
Don't even get me started. I'll get back to that in a couple minutes. But anyway, for now we're watching this. We're watching this.
I'm guessing it causes issues with the puppy levels, huh?
Just like in the original game, as you can see, the backgrounds of the Super Nintendo version are different. I don't mind this background on the Super Nintendo. However, maybe just because I grew up with it, of the Mega Drive version, but I don't know. I kind of feel like that sunset at the end is kind of really... It's a nice color contrast.
It's a type of color, Pedro. The kind of shades of red and yellow give a more warm and welcoming vibe.
Whereas,
I think what's
don't get me wrong, the background on the Super Nintendo is better.
Late sunset kind of thing, I should say.
Don't get me wrong, the background on the Super Nintendo is not bad. It's just that I think the color contrast is better on the Mega Drive.
Okay. Oh god, the screen crunch.
Yeah, another thing, the PC version that we did uses the Genesis background. So basically, like I said, it brings in some functionalities from the Super Nintendo, while at the same time retaining the backgrounds from the Mega Drive version, which is why I prefer personally the PC version, regardless of the level missing. Like I said, I have my personal way of getting around that, but I can understand why some people would prefer just playing one of these two versions.
The only issue, I actually really like both backgrounds. But the only issue I have with the Super Nintendo version specifically is that waterfall looks kind of out of place visually.
Yeah.
It looks kind of ugly, actually.
Notice, Theo, how the Jaws...
compared to the rest.
Notice, Theo, how the Jaws portraits are different between versions.
Yeah, I can see that. Very slightly lighter. Of,
I never understood why Shiny did all of these minor differences in between versions with these two games. It's a bit weird. I guess I honestly cannot find a theory for it. I'm literally clueless as to.
If I can also give my
maybe
input on this.
Wanted to make each experience give a sorry, go on.
If I can give my input, the thing here is like, well. Like Shiroi, I like them both, but I think I'm a bit... Okay, it's a point like these, you know what this feels like? This feels like two distinct different versions of the game. It's kind of like, Pokemon Sun and Pokemon Moon. Like, I have to wonder, why did they go out of their way to make completely different looks, in regards to the Mega Genesis.
If you allow me, Jova, here are the 32-bit. These are the 32-bit versions of Earthworm Jim 2.
Christ Almighty, what's happened to them?
Okay. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate these versions for having CD audio, aka we get to hear the Tommy's compositions as they were originally made, even better than the quality of the Super Nintendo even. Again, this is another reason why I prefer the PC version, because I really want to hear Tommy Tallarico's music as it was originally made, as it was intended. But yeah,
however,
these backgrounds...
it looks like these have the usual bout of the 32-bit era of creation. Or not even just that, but when we got to 64-bit with stuff like the N64, there was that... Okay, I get that devs wanted to be creative, but you could tell they kind of got to the point of being mad scientist levels of creepy with
this
how
port was
weird
made
these
by
renders
Screaming...
could get.
I would like to remind everybody that this port was made by Screaming Pink, a different developer... Oh, and here's all the different cow screens.
What?
The 32-bit version, for some reason, has them on a beach with surfing boards. I don't get that. But anyway...
Because it's cool and shit.
Here's another thing. The final level has a different background in the Super Nintendo version as well. So.
And the SNES version looks actually... Okay, it actually has weird different textures to the stairs. Like, in this version, the textures... Well, the one to the right anyway, it's a simple bout of running here and there. Whereas with the Mega Drive one, it gives the illusion of, those inclines possibly tripping you up because, well, they're blocks among blocks.
Personally, I prefer the look of the Mega Drive version. Like, I feel like they're like the overall dark palette, I think, looks really cool. Whereas the Super Nintendo version looks a bit bland in comparison, if you ask me. But
what weirds me out is like, well, it's not like they had to do these because of differences of power for the console. It's like, again, it feels
Also,
like Pokemon variation differences.
The Super
like,
Nintendo
I just
version
have to
lacks
wonder
stairs.
why.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Honestly,
exactly
with how slopey it is, it's almost like a Sonic level.
I was about to say, oh my god, Stardust Speedway will know its revenge.
There we go.
Let me just mention something as well, like, okay, about those 32-bit backgrounds from the Sega Saturn and PS1 versions that we just saw. Oh, and here we go. It's one of the problems with those backgrounds is that this is clearly one of those cases where the developers should have remembered that sometimes less is more. Just because you can add shit into the background, that doesn't necessarily mean you should. The backgrounds in the backgrounds on the original versions are simple, yes, but there's an elegant simplicity to them, if you ask me. There was no real need to clutter the background with random planets and bright colors. I mean,
I will admit though, here the background actually does look nice on the 32-bit one.
This one I really like.
In a file office.
Yeah,
okay,
this one I really like
nice.
this one. This is one of the better cases, much like the utterly abducted one with the statue.
So here's my question: why was the music from the Race Against Jim Psycho in the office there?
There you go. Puppy love in every single version. And I don't like the background Screaming Pink added to the PS1 and Sega Saturn versions.
Why the volcanic planet?
I don't
Italy?
know. Okay, maybe Italy too? I guess that was their logic, but I don't know.
Well,
it's just...
keep in mind, no, it makes sense because the city of Naples is built on the base of the Vesuvius, so yeah.
I gotta say, this guy looks pretty good at the dog juggling thing. He knows exactly where to go on each of them.
I have to bring up my earlier argument though. Sometimes less is more. I don't think you needed this new background, honestly. The original was really well put together in terms of color contrast. Like,
yeah,
that background is kind of distracting if you ask me. Like, I don't know. Maybe
I wouldn't call it distracting.
Maybe they thought the first one was too plain. I don't know, but I like it.
Not
the new one. I like the original.
Notice as well the difference between the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo versions. The Super Nintendo version has a sun of sorts in the background, and you'll also notice that the Game Boy Advance is a port of the Super Nintendo version. So.
Yeah, I was about to ask, why is it that only now with this one he shows off the Game Boy Advance version?
Because this is where it's the most apparent that the screen crunch fucking sucks. Compare the screen size of the Game Boy Advance version with the other versions.
Oh, is this the level where you were gonna rant about the screen crunch?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, you fought Sonic Genesis. Believe it or not, everybody, Sonic Genesis was Sega taking inspiration from the GBA Earthworm Jim ports, because these ports originally came out in 2002 and 2003 or 4, if I remember correctly. So You're probably wondering, why did Sega even get the idea of doing a terrible port of Sonic 1? Well, from Earthworm Jim, believe it or not. There you go.
Again,
Wow.
the frame
The
rate.
screen
my
crunch.
God.
Okay, guys, this guy is a pro looking at what he's doing with the screen crunch.
Look at all the puppies flying, Shiroi.
Selenig,
Not one of them splattered.
Selenig, you're awesome.
They're so adorable when they go smoosh on the floor.
It's just...
Sure, right,
Notice the
sure.
difference in resolution. 240, 160 for the GBA version. Compared to...
That's terrible.
It's just... like, what? Keep in mind, Teo,
You
you
know,
were
the
asking
thing
about... Keep in mind, Teo, you were saying at your final thoughts that you think this franchise is underappreciated in nowadays. This is one of the main reasons why, because this is one of the opportunities of getting a new generation fans of Earthworm Jim thanks to the GBA ports, but they butchered them completely, and as a result, kids of the time just wrote these off as terrible games. And
Anyway, going back
Enjoy,
to the issues
dipshit,
with the
as you would say.
background in the 32-bit era, my take on it is this. Whereas all the other versions look like something that's very nice and out in outer space, in the 32-bit versions, they look more like, again, you're in a place like Italy or... Well, I can't believe I'm saying this, like you're near a Mayan temple for some reason. I mean, sure, both have volcanoes, but I'll admit, the ones in the 32-bit ones seem more down to earth, which may not be the best thing, given how crazy the circumstances are.
another thing I don't like is notice how in the Super Nintendo and by extension GBA and also the 32-bit versions, the sprite of Peter's sprite on the top right corner is white for some reason. Only the Mega Drive and the PC versions have the correct color, which would be pink.
That's whitewashing.
Okay. It's just so weird. Why change the sprite? Like, I actually even prefer the sprite on the PC version. Notice the PC version compared to the Mega Drive version. Notice that the sprite, they made a new, more detailed sprite for Peter in the PC version. Again, another one of those little things that just makes me prefer the PC version. There's just this best of both worlds mentality to it that I really appreciate. Yes, the missing level is a bummer, but I don't know. Those little things really add up to me.
And it's so weird because the missing level, you say, well, okay. The missing level technically is also in the Mega Drive version, but
is.
the SNES version is the one with the better music and overall better aesthetics.
God.
Well, in some regards.
I'm sorry, Teo.
What
is
song,
it?
Teo?
The music with the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, we're
version.
listening to the GBA music right now.
Oh dear. Oh!
They butchered the Tommy Tallarico track.
I
Let me
mean, I
remind you.
understand that the Game Boy Advance sound chip was very hard to work with, but come on, man.
Okay,
It's just-
I'll say
Hard
this
to
right now.
work with. It was ear grating.
Every time I listen to stuff like that, I have to remember that Capcom managed to make the Ace Attorney soundtrack sound as good as they could originally on the Game Boy Advance sound chip.
True.
Like, let's not forget, essentially we're hearing, okay, yes, the music in the DS versions is technically upscaled and better, but for the most part, we're hearing those melodies straight from the GBA version. And I've heard the GBA versions. Yes, they are not as good as the DS and later high-quality versions, but they're still pretty good. Like, again, anyone who could do a good GBA soundtrack was kind of considered a musical god
Well,
at the time.
Jova, you could just point out the fact that that the GBA port is a bad port, and according to here's an
I'm
idea.
talking specifically about the music, though, because GBA was always infamous with its sound chips.
Okay, so in level 8, you have this new background, which actually looks pretty cool. This is one of the better of the new backgrounds.
Though I kind of have to wonder, though, what's even the point of all the forks, though? Because, like, in the original version, it was, over a grill, with all this food. But now we're going across bacon and forks while we're seeing cows in the background. I mean, sure, it's nice, but it doesn't quite fit the context of the level. Granted, that's more of a nitpick, but it is kind of something that's a bit jarring, especially considering the overall cartoony nature and how, while they do have cartoony themes, they still overall fit.
And also, considering the bacon is the only thing left, because they removed the rest of the background, it's kind of out of place, because bacon doesn't come from cows.
Yeah, it comes from pigs.
Yeah.
In fact, why are they saying... Oh, never mind. That does
To be
come
fair,
from a
Joe,
cow.
sure, we can excuse that in a sense that the universe of Earthworm Jim is wacky enough that we could use that suspension of disbelief for that.
I think I'd be more okay with that if we didn't have the better version to compare it to.
Yeah.
And wait, what?
It's like I keep saying. It's like I've kept saying, Teo. Sometimes less is more. Like you don't.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, these are the credits of the PC version. Sorry, the 32-bit versions. They're completely the same except for those 5 little faces. The 6 actually rather faces. I don't know why they're not in the. I'll let you never mind. They're in the PS1 version. Oh, okay, never mind.
And the PlayStation's credits for some reason move at a way slower frame rate.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's another one. Like there is one particular difference in credits between these 2 versions, as you're about to see. The Sega Saturn version has that screenshot.
My goodness, Jim.
Whereas the PS1 version doesn't.
Jim, you're not looking well.
Also, Jim, I thought you were a cow, but now you're actually back to your Earthworm costume. Make up your mind,
Jova. You're trying to find logic in Earthworm Jim. You realize the implications of that.
I'll find it. I'll find it if I have to. No, I'm not going to do something that drastic. But
it's Jova. It's a lost cause. It's a lost cause, Jova.
As lost as Earthworm Jim was to the flows of time when Earthworm HD kind of screwed the pooch. Oops, did I say that out loud?
It's interesting you mentioned that, Jova, because but before we get to the HD remake, let's check these GBA ports a bit more closely.
Okay.
Brought to us by Majesco.
Uh-oh. We gotta go in deeper, Tio.
What? Anyway, Earthworm Jim for the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, we're really going in depth with this. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Earthworm Jim Genesis.
Wait.
Oh dear.
That's basically what this is. These are the ports that inspired Sonic Genesis, as far as I'm concerned, because it's like it was made by the same team. You'll see in a moment. Look at this. First of all, screen crunch. That's the first big death knell right there.
Oh, frame rate.
Oh, and guess what? The GBA port is a port of the already inferior Super Nintendo version of the first game, so that's definitely already another bad sign.
Are you oh, right. You can tell it's a port of the SNES version because it has the sun flare in the background.
Yeah. So remember, Shiro, remember how let's face it, butchered the SNES music was? Now you get to hear that butchered music through the GBA sound speakers. Enjoy!
I also have to wonder
I'm okay, thank you.
I also have to wonder if we'd even be able to tell the difference considering how the GBA mangles tunes, but yeah. As someone who preferred the PC and I prefer the PC and Mega Drive versions of certain tunes, this does not bode well.
Well,
SNES, I loved you, and you were technically the superior console hardware-wise, but you didn't always get the best versions of games, especially when it came to soundtrack, which is weird because the SNES technically had.
Notice also there's missing sound effects. Just like in the Super Nintendo version, there's missing sound effects. But you know what's interesting about this port?
What?
Even though it's a port of the Super Nintendo version, they did bother to add in the missing level that was in the Mega Drive version, but was not present in the Super Nintendo version. So, yay!
Wait, hold on, wait. What level was that?
The intestinal distress level. The one where we're inside an intestine.
So, does that mean they made a completely new remixed version of the song for it there?
From what I can tell, it's basically the same track. I haven't actually experimented much with this port for obvious reasons. I just wanted to give you guys a brief glimpse of what the main problem is here. So there you go, Shiro. You thought Sonic Genesis was a pioneer? Well, think again.
I mean, Sonic Genesis is something that's getting its own playthrough, so I gotta wonder, was this even worse than that?
It's on the same level, I would argue. The frame rate is bad, just like in Sonic Genesis. The screen crunch is atrocious. The sound is butchered. Again, I'm not even kidding you guys. When Sonic Genesis first came out and I saw it for myself, I was like, oh crap, it's the Earthworm Jim ports all over again, because Sonic Genesis gets a lot of bad rap, but trust me, these ports deserve that equal rap. I assure you.
I can't believe I'm about to say this. The frame rate here may be even worse than Sonic Genesis. Sonic Genesis has a lot of slowdown. But at least with Sonic Genesis' slowdown, it's done in a way where you're just slowing down. But here, you notably freeze with movements like.
So yeah, Teo, like I said.
Sorry,
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would argue that Sonic Genesis is a little worse because it has all the same problems, sure, but there's a key difference between Sonic level design and this. You're able to take your time with this, but Sonic is gotta go fast.
True.
And you're more open to death in Sonic level design than you are here.
And God help you if you're trying to get the good ending in Sonic Genesis.
I would say the music here is more ear-grating, though.
Teo,
Yes.
you were wondering why this franchise is underappreciated nowadays? Here's reason one. A lot of kids from the early 2000s grew up with these versions.
Oh.
So you can probably see where this is going, right?
See, here's the issue of Earthworm Jim. Back in the day when platformers were a dime a dozen, he stood out as one of the more quality-driven platformers that was good enough to get their own TV series. Here's the problem. The company that owned him didn't have a real game plan in the long run.
Yeah.
That is kind of a problem with a lot of cartoony platformer mascots of the day and era. It's like, unless they had a company with a game plan, they eventually kind of went out. How sad is it that the team behind Bubsy had more of a game plan than the people behind Earthworm Jim? Because Bubsy went on to last.
I think they just kind of rolled with
Well,
it.
actually, Jova, I can tell you the story about that, Jova, if you allow me. After Shiny Entertainment finished the second game, it was two things. One, Doug April left Shiny and he took some people with him, like Mike Dietz, the directing animator. So it was kind of a Beatles situation where they split up to do their own different things, and just like with the Beatles, it was never the same ever again. Coupled to the fact that Interplay, the company that owned Earthworm Jim at the time, when they made Earthworm Jim 3D, they didn't even get Shiny to make it. They passed it off to a different developer, and David Perry himself said that he tried his best to talk Interplay out of doing it, but to no avail. So basically, it has to also do with Interplay's horrible management of the IP.
So they pulled an Activision.
So yeah, as you can see, this opening is in every version of Earthworm Jim 2.
So, question, with Earthworm 3D, is that like an actual 3D platformer?
Yes, it was their attempt at trying to cash in on the Mario 64 Banjo-Kazooie popularity stuff. However, it was a very bad to mediocre.
It didn't work out.
Shiro actually played that one. Shiro, would you care to do the honors?
It wasn't a good thing that happened.
There you go.
Okay.
It was the first Earthworm Jim, the only Earthworm Jim game that I actually played.
Okay. I'm gonna ask a question that's...
I have two
What
things.
is this?
Okay, Jova, I have both good news and bad news. What you want to hear first?
All right.
The good news is that the frame rate in the GBA Earthworm Jim 2 port is fine. The bad news is that in order to achieve that, they had to pixelate the graphics to ugly patterns, and they fucked up the physics of Earthworm Jim. I'm not even kidding. Notice how when I'm jumping, I fall really fast to the ground, and trust me, when you're playing it, you feel that weight. Jim feels heavy as shit in this port. It's
God.
Teo,
what they do to you?
Yes.
Teo?
Yes.
Once again, to answer your question about the whole underappreciated thing, here's step 2. Meet step 2.
So, okay.
Welcome to the Microsoft Paint port of Earthworm Jim.
Seriously, this could pass off as being a texture in a Quilton Yoshi's yarn. It's so fuzzy. And not in a good way, like Yoshi's yarn.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fuzzy. It's yarn.
You know what's interesting? Even though they were both published by Majesco, both ports were handled by different developers. So you'd think at the very least one of them would be better, and to be fair, this one is at the very least better in terms of the frame rate, but it sacrificed some animations, it looks terribly pixelated, and trust me, Jova, jumping to that chair is a pain in this port because the game was not designed with these physics in mind.
God help you if you fall. Never mind.
Sonic Genesis was only the third one of its kind. These two started that trend, believe it or not.
I'm honestly debating
so we have
whether
you to blame.
And I'm honestly debating whether or not this may be worse than Sonic Genesis. It's that bad. In regards to being a GBA port.
No, I'd say this. I'd say this particular one is worse because you're struggling to do basic platforming here.
Yeah.
And again,
it's hard to
all for
explain.
Just a better frame rate, a frame rate that isn't even really still that impressive.
It's easy to explain to me.
Also, no bagpipes.
It's easy to explain. Actually, Teo, that's only on the bonus level.
Sorry.
It's easy to explain if you're experiencing the original games as I am, but to those who aren't, here's what you do: boot up some emulators or something. And by the way, thanks GameMenu.com for the footage for this one, because this game is not available for purchase anymore. Here's Earthworm Jim, the HD remake by Gameloft. But anyway, just to finish what I was saying, play any of the original versions of Earthworm Jim 2, then boot up the GBA port, and you'll feel the difference, I assure you.
Oh, Gameloft! The same ones who are bringing us games like Disney and Magic Kingdom.
Gameloft. Okay, here's the problem. Gameloft got the rights from Interplay to make a new Earthworm Jim remake, and possibly also remake the second game, and maybe, basically, Joe, this was supposed to be the Insane Trilogy equivalent of Earthworm Jim. Here's the problem. Gameloft made this game for mobile, and the PS3 and Xbox 360 versions are ports.
Yeah. That's what raised up my eyebrow. It's like, well, I know Gameloft.
Okay, here's the first problem.
Games.
Tommy Tellerico was not involved in this port. And does this sound like an Earthworm Jim song to you?
I mean, it's not the worst thing, but yeah, it's definitely not. Okay, it's definitely not something I would expect coming from what I've heard of the first.
An Earthworm Jim track is supposed to be like Tommy Tellerico's tracks are immediately catchy the moment you hear them.
That track not the music, though. I mean, I guess it looks good.
Okay, here's my problem. Look at that. Look at these sprites. This looks a bit too plasticky for me. I'm sorry, but I don't like the way. Keep in mind, the Earthworm Jim on the Mega Drive and Sega CD looked hand-drawn, and it was on 16-bit systems. Why is an HD remake on the PS3 and 360 look like this? Shouldn't it look? I don't know. It doesn't look as good. Let's compare the backgrounds, for example. The background, if you go back to the original backgrounds, they looked detailed. There was a lot of dust on the floor and stuff like that. This looks too clean. Again, it's the same problem I have with something akin to. Let me see.
Basically, like, Ace Attorney HD.
Sure, we'll use that. Ladies and gentlemen, Planet Heck in this version is actually known by the fans as Planet Fart. Why do you say it's called Planet Fart? You're about to find out why this Planet Heck is. Also, I don't really. Also, the lava in the background is very poorly
animated.
Is that the
sound that the lava's making?
Yes. Every single time there's a fire explosion of sorts, it's a fart sound.
No.
Why?
Now, okay. I will give Earthworm HD credit. It does do some interesting things. Like, as you can see, there's actually Evil the Cat in the background there. And there are some nice little details that include.
It was already in the original version, though.
Was it?
Yeah,
yes, it was.
It was.
Oh.
Never mind, then. Well, okay, there's some details to that. It's like Earthworm Jim doesn't technically move straight. He'll move in and out as per the textures and whatnot. I mean, okay. I guess I have yet to see anything particularly that bad about this HD port that would have doomed it, but I'm guessing that's soon to come eventually.
Well, first of all, Jova, listen to that sound effect. You're listening to it throughout the entirety of the level.
Also, question, did they try selling this as an actual console game, or did they try selling it as a mobile game?
Digital only.
Oh, what year?
This port was made in 2000. Came out in 2010. Look at that lava.
Wait, they don't even show Buttville.
The lava. No, actually, no, Java. It was me who cut to that.
Okay.
The lava in the background is worse animated than a 16.
They don't mesh well with the background. That's just. Ugh.
By the way, I know we didn't get to hear much of it, and it might be because I'm used to hearing the original, but I wasn't a fan of Jim's voice from...
Oh, that's another thing, Shiroi. they couldn't get neither Doug TenNapel nor Dan Castellaneta to voice Jim. They got a new guy, and he doesn't sound like Earthworm Jim should sound like at all.
Okay. This
I
is
guess
just
I need
wrong.
to hear more, but from what I heard, I'm not exactly keen.
Well, I didn't want
Okay.
to. This part is already long enough as it is. I didn't want to.
Sure.
Okay, can I mention a problem I have with this? Game Off. Okay, Game Off, like I said, they currently run a few mobile games, one of them being Disney Magic Kingdoms. Disney Magic Kingdoms actually has allowed them to get the flipping voice actors of Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, pretty much any Mickey Mouse character,
Well-
voice actors from the Toy Story movies, well, except for Tom Hanks, but it's still his brother, but aside from that, the actual voice actors for that. Now, granted, maybe it's because Disney's forking them more cash, but it's so jarring seeing them do a better job with the Disney Magic Kingdoms, and don't get me wrong, that's more like a town builder mobile game, but the point being is like, well, where was the effort, from that game for this game?
Well, like you yourself said, Joe, maybe just because with Disney they had a bigger budget. But anyway, okay, no, this is not how an HD Earthworm Jim game should look like. Earthworm Jim, one of the big appeals of Earthworm Jim is how it literally looks like you're playing a cartoon. Like I said, the original game went to the trouble of creating full-blown hand-drawn animation to be compressed into the consoles. This feels like a mobile game. Why? Because it actually is a mobile game. This game was made for mobile systems and then ported to PS3 and Xbox 360.
And from what I can gather, it didn't get that good advertising.
No, this
is a
port,
problem with some mobile ports or whatnot. It's like, well, unless the company truly does care for them, those mobile games aren't really going to get a lot of talk or say so.
The port, don't get me wrong, this is obviously not as bad as the GBA port, obviously, but Earthworm Jim deserves better than this. I'm sorry.
There was no fanfare because, look, I was a big gaming nut, and I didn't really hear a lick about this. And I knew about Earthworm Jim, but
well, that's
never
because
about this game.
because the fans don't really care for this remake in general, Jova. It's just not a very good one. Like, they didn't even. Okay, I get it. Hand-drawn animation costs a lot of money. I get that, but and especially considering at the time hand-drawn animation, this was already. By this point, hand-drawn animation in America was much less prominent than it was back when Earthworm Jim was originally made. I get that, but at the same time, I still think the graphics should have looked better than that. But anyway,
which
the
is kind of
Earthworm
a shame
Jim
because
HD
like, I
remake-
do see some interesting ideas here. Like, well, I mean, they do make something CGI to, make them feel like, oh my god, this is really uncanny, but not everything. Like, well, there actually are some good ideas to this HD
Look at that
port
explosion
to
effect.
make
Did you see it?
seem HD. Yeah.
Like, it looks so cheap. But anyway, that's the thing. Again, Earthworm Jim is supposed to look like a cartoon, not a CGI thing, not a CGI whatever. The point is, okay, Jova, remember that new level that was made for the Insane trilogy?
Yeah.
This game's this game also kind of has that. The Earthworm Jim HD remake
Oh,
also
there's a
added
new level?
some new levels combined with 4-player co-op. I'm not going to show
That
off the co-op.
sounds good on paper.
It is
but-
good. It is good on paper. Here's the problem: the multiplayer on itself is fine enough, but I kind of wish the effort into that multiplayer would have gone into actually making the core game better. If you ask me.
How does the co-op go? Is it like you
It's
play
fun.
as two different versions of
No,
Jim?
you play as Recolors. Think of it like the Sonic Colors multiplayer of sorts.
Okay.
So yeah, this is one of the new levels. As you can see, one of the big appeals of the Earthworm Jim games is the incredible creativity in the concepts for the levels. The new levels that they come up with is literally nothing but this, just basically a repurpose of the assets from New Junk City and make them greenish.
Also,
Very creative, right?
Can I talk about how that transition was lazy? Okay, so you're from Jim. You stand on the toilet, so you think, oh, Jim's gonna have some funny animation where he gets flushed down the toilet? No, he just gets beamed and that's it. Like, think about this. If this were the original devs, you can bet we would have seen a funny scene of Jim flushing himself down that toilet to then end up spinning down there, but it's just a lazy teleport. It may sound like a nitpick, but like you said, Pedro, isn't this what we expect of Earthworm Jim?
Yeah. I really would love if WayForward made a remake of this, because WayForward's engine is perfect for Earthworm Jim.
WayForward would have given this game the love it deserved and then some if DuckTales HD is anything to go by.
Jova, DuckTales HD looks like you're playing the cartoon. That's the approach Earthworm Jim should go for, and this game doesn't even try to replicate the hand-drawn look. It just looks very flashy, Newgroundsy, if you will. And like I said, look at this. This is the same franchise that gave us an entire level of trying to save puppies at the sound of Italian folklore music. What's the new content for this amazing remake? A repurpose of New Junk City's assets with bland as hell music.
Like,
I'm really more baffled by the salamander, to be honest.
Tail?
I don't know. I don't know. I think this level is okay. It could have been better for the standard of the series, yes, but I don't know.
I can agree that it's okay, but it's lacking in comparison.
My problem is the lack of... Oh, here's a new boss. Okay, this is the one thing I'll give them that. Our boss is a granny who's shooting at us.
Holy cow!
Okay, fine. This is the kind of boss...
What is she doing?
She's trying to hit us with her purse.
Oh.
And she's also
her
kind
eyes go red when she gets serious. Okay, now this is nice.
This is the kind of thing I would expect from an Earthworm Jim boss. Yes, this kind of random, completely off-the-wall thing. She's throwing out her...
Oh god, she's trying to stab us with her knitting needles!
Yes. Again, this is Where was this creativity in the rest of the level? Like...
Yeah.
Also, why does she have a health bar?
Because one of the things they added to the bosses too is that they added life bars on top of the bosses in this remake.
Okay. I like that because I like to actually know how much.
Yeah, I have no
problem.
I have no problem with that either. See, my problem with it too is that again, all of the level concepts for Earthworm Jim 1 and 2 are so creative. The very concept of the levels are so creative, and this is the best they could come up with for a new level. Like just repurpose assets with a new colors. I don't know. The lack of creativity is just a bit, I don't know, like Earthworm Jim.
Especially considering the boss we just had, I kind of felt like they could have done a bit better.
I think I see what Pedro means. It's like, well, it feels like they're playing things a little too safe, and I think we'd be more understanding if we got a sequel, which shows that they've learned from it. But no, apparently they called it quits after this, which kind of feels like, dude, you could have been more creative, but you chose to not.
It's not exactly a bad level, but I just felt like it could have been something different.
That's another thing. That's another thing, Joe. But you just mentioned playing it safe. If there's one thing you should never do when making an Earthworm Jim game, is to play it safe. Because one of the big appeals of Earthworm Jim is that it's one of those rare cases of a game that, as Tia would say, is literally throwing shit at the wall, hoping it sticks, and yet somehow all of it sticks. It's a miracle of game design that I still have no idea how they accomplished this. Probably with a lot of drugs. Like, the fact these games have always been about throwing shit, the most random, stupid shit at the wall, hoping it sticks, and yet somehow it sticks. And this game, for the new levels, it played it safe, which is... I can understand the thought process of playing it safe, but... Playing it safe and Earthworm Jim do not go well together. Being randomly and completely creative and to the point of complete what the fuckery is one of the big appeals of Earthworm Jim. If you take that away, it just becomes a bland platformer.
So Pedro, what were the other levels that they made for this game like?
They all look like this.
Wait. They're all that with the same boss.
They don't. Well, okay. How about this? That what you just saw there was the final level of the final one of the new levels. There's only one boss and some new levels, but all the new levels are just reused of the assets of the new Junk City with different colors.
Oh,
yeah, it's that lazy. Again, Earthworm Jim and playing it safe and being this rehashy. It's just. Again,
it really
this is the perfect game. This game is your perfect excuse, Game Loft, to just go complete apeshit, take some drugs, and just put whatever the fuck comes to your mind.
Yeah.
And you didn't take advantage of that. Like, I can understand that the whole concept of throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks just is usually a sign of trouble. It is. But if there is one franchise where it's justified to attempt that, it's this one. because the first two games made their name on the fact that they made that process work somehow, some way, and nobody still knows how. Like I said, probably a lot of drugs, but
it's kind of a sad thing. It's like, well, because essentially, if this is the end of Jim's run, he didn't even end with a so bad it's good bang. It's more like just a we're trying but not enough whimper.
That's basically it. The GBA ports were gigantic disasters. The Earthworm Jim HD remake, the primary reaction to people was,
Yeah.
And if there's one thing Earthworm Jim should not leave you as, is indifferent. Anyway, you have something to add there since you seem to be enjoying the level more?
I don't know. I was just thinking it's fine. Not spectacular, but just fine. That's
the issue. It's like I mean, go, okay, look, if they were planning to make a sequel, I can understand it being fine so that they would build off of that. But the problem was like, well, this is where they called it quits, so just fine. It's
from what I can tell, Jova, the original plan was to remake this game and then remake the second one, and after that they would use that experience to make a proper Earthworm Jim 3.
Hey, maybe they could have actually made it a full-fledged release as opposed to, I don't know, download only, because back in the day, download onlys weren't really the talk of town as much as they are nowadays. Well, that's the thing,
Jova. Gameloft is a digital mobile publisher. Obviously, they would do it that way.
Gee, and people wonder why I'm not too big on, console games getting mobile revivals in Command & Conquer's games.
If Interplay cared about the quality of this remake, they would have handed it to WayForward.
And look, folks, I'm not saying that all mobile games are destined to be bad because, hey, Layton Brothers is a mobile game. But the difference is like, well, Layton Brothers comes from a company who would have a lot of love and care regardless of the platform. Gameloft here, it feels like it was just another job to them. And, good for them. You got the job done. But think about what it did for poor Jim and his legacy.
After Earthworm Jim HD, the Earthworm Jim franchise... Okay, how about this? 3 years... That's actually another thing that I should mention. Shortly before this remake was made, Doug TenNapel and David Perry did reunite to make a PSP Earthworm Jim game. It was going to be a 2.5D game. I didn't particularly, from what the footage we have of it, I didn't particularly care for the 2.5D look. It didn't really look like a cartoon, but okay, I'm willing to get past that if at least the game itself is as creative and fun as the others.
Let me guess, it got canceled.
It got canceled because Interplay was having financial troubles. And by the way, David Perry didn't like this HD remake either. He said that it didn't like how the animation was done. He didn't like how the graphics were made. Because remember, he was the one who made the engine that was used to convert the hand-drawn animation into the sprites. So he knows this shit. And he didn't like it at all.
He said he tried to take the project back.
No, well, that's the thing, Shiroi. He doesn't own Earthworm Jim. Interplay. Well, in this particular time period, Interplay did. I don't know who owns it now, but he doesn't actually own Earthworm Jim. So obviously, the creators have expressed desire in recent years to still someday go back and try to make a new game. The problem is that, of course, the problem is that it's hard to gauge interest from a publisher who's actually willing to put the necessary budget and all that good stuff, because Earthworm Jim HD, after Earthworm Jim HD, the franchise went completely away. It just stopped existing altogether.
The last thing I heard of was that Jim was going to be a supporting character in a failed Kickstarter Boogerman reboot.
Yeah,
but that's about it.
The last noteworthy thing that happened as far as Earthworm Jim is concerned was 2012's DVD release of the cartoon. So thank God we don't have to deal with the VHS recordings anymore.
Well, hey, at least more people know him now thanks to Dorkly Sonic for Hire videos. That too.
I don't know, Joe. It's just a...
Yeah, I know. It's really no replacement.
No. But anyway, that was...
It really is a shame.
It's kind of a solemn ending, we know, audience, but what can we say? This is a franchise that deserves better. It deserves to be more... Even Theo mentioned this in the previous part. Like, this franchise deserves better. So it's kind of a shame that the people who went on to re-release these games did it so... haphazardly, I guess I could say. It's just.
I noticed that we didn't cover Earthworm Jim 3D. I'm guessing that's going to
be its own playthrough for the
I gotta wonder,
worst of
did
my
it
sins.
help, hinder, or
Have fun with that.
well, Jova, Shira's thoughts on the thing should tell you very well. Earthworm Jim 3D was a very bad generic 3D platformer that basically just kind of whimpered and died. It didn't really make any kind of impression on people.
And yet Sonic is still alive and kicking.
Well, that's because Sonic has had some pretty good stuff. He's
Not to
got
mention
crossovers, and he's got Smash to keep him.
Then maybe I guess Bubsy is a better
Not to mention Shiroi.
Bubsy came back from the dead, though.
Not to mention Shiroi. In between the dark age of Sonic had some really good 2D handheld games. Earthworm Jim didn't even have the luxury of having that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, Sonic, even as worse, Sonic has had a good uplifting thing, whether it be a good 2D handheld game or a good spin-off game. The Sonic Riders was a pretty good spin-off to help salvage his career during 2006.
So maybe the Spyro series then, I don't know, because that kind of died a death.
You know what's...
Oh, yes, it did.
Here's a little interesting thing. Gameloft bought the rights to make and sell this remake, and they didn't remake the second game because this game didn't sell well. And this very same year, 2018. I'm sorry, I know this makes it dated, but in this case, it's justified. In February 2018, Gameloft officially lost the rights to the Earthworm Jim. To the Earthworm Jim stuff, and it didn't renew their rights, and as a result, the HD remake was delisted from Steam. Actually, no, it was never. Did it ever get to Steam? Whatever. The point is, it was delisted from every place it was available. Right now, the only way to play it from Jim HD is to pirate it. Here's my suggestion. If you're gonna pirate a game anyway, pirate the Sega CD version. That's an interesting thing, Jova. They based their HD remake on the Mega Drive version. You would think they would base it on the definitive Sega CD version with the extra content, but no. See, if they knew what they were doing, they would have based it on the Sega CD version, but they didn't. I guess I should be thankful that they based it on the Mega Drive version instead of the Super Nintendo version. But anyway, we're dragging this out.
Tune in for Earthworm Jim 3D.
Ungroovy. See ya, everybody.
See ya.
See ya.